information. That's some nasty work.
Where did Kenya get this from? And why are we seeing it? And why is it blown up?
You done lost your damn mind. When you get your damn mind, you call me.
So, not even being dramatic, but my heart is heavy right now because this past episode of The Real Housewives of Atlanta still has me speechless. Kenya Moore, for you to go out sad like this after you've had such a long career on this show as one of the most iconic housewives, it was devastating. And hear what I'm saying. I'm not saying that Kenya was not allowed to be upset because I was upset for her in the last episode. What Brit said was unacceptable. But Kenya, you played this all wrong. This was a huge mistake. It was a misstep. It was a miscalculation. Because Miss Mamas, what would possess you to ruin your own event that you spent tens of thousands of dollars on? You have to be strategic when it comes to going back and forth with people. There's an art to arguing. There's a time to be silent and there's a time to speak up. In Kenya's case, her best bet was paying Brit dust. Because Kenya, like I told you in my last recap, if I were you, I would have turned into the biggest Karen. The email that I would have drafted up to the entire network, citing how unsafe I felt, how uncomfortable I felt. You could have easily had your way. It's clear that Brit came on this show with an agenda to take you out. And that's exactly what happened. You played right into her hands. When you're dealing with unhinged weirdos like Brit, you have to know how to play the game. You have to know that ignoring somebody like her is going to kill her even more than a cheap antic like that. Ignoring somebody has a lot more power than people think. Whether this is Housewives in real life, you have to know how to control your emotions. Had Kenya played her cards right, she would still be on the show. Kenya should not have allowed this newcomer to trick her out of her spot. And I'm sorry, Kenya, you took a major loss. This should not have happened. And just because I like Kenya does not mean that she's exempt from critiques. And it's aggravating because, Kenya, you've worked so hard. You've been able to start your own hair care line and now a hair spa. And for you to ruin such a milestone in your life over what? Over a woman that hasn't even been here for more than 4 weeks? You crashed out over Brit, and most likely Brit won't even be around next season. So you did all this for her? And Kenya, it's not lost on me that during that scene, before you did what you did, you kept taking shots. Anytime you need that liquid courage to do something stupid, you know you've already messed up. It's upsetting because this was such a prime opportunity for you to showcase your gorgeous spa. And now it's been tainted with this horrific moment. Be very clear about it. No op is ever getting my attention like that, especially on a major day like this to celebrate my new business. Are you kidding? Now, I have a whole lot more to say about that spectacle. So without further ado, let's just get right on into it because you guys already know that we don't have a minute to spare. Now, let me be very clear. I'm welcome to all different point of views, perspectives, opinions, but I will not take any disrespect in the comment section. Not to me or my subscribers, okay? So let's keep the discussion down below cute. So we open up the episode with Shamea and we see that she's in her gorgeous home and we see Angela arrive first. So Angela says, "Thank you so much, Shamea, for inviting me." And Shamea's like, "Oh girl, of course, I'm happy that you're here. I just want to tell you, thank you for accepting my apology, and I hope that we can move forward." So now they toast to new beginnings. Now mind you, this is the day after Angela's dinner at the bank. So now we cut to Shamea's confessional and she says that she thought that last night started off amazing, they were off to the races, and then all of a sudden things went left. And then she goes on to say that she was confused because she thought that Brit was playing around. And I said, Shamea, Brit was crashing out early into that dinner, especially when Kenya made that comment where she said, peasants can't come for the queen. Brit really showed out then. So I don't know how you thought that Brit was joking. Brit was already on 10. She wanted to start a fight with Kenya. So we see Brit come over and she's embarrassed about what happened last night. And she says, yeah, I know, I acted a fool. Now I said, hold on. You come to Shamia's home empty-handed? Now I noticed that Angela also came in empty-handed. But Brit, the fact that you were the culprit and ruined the night, I was shocked that I didn't see you come in with a bottle of champagne or some flowers. I said, okay, girl, I guess. So Brit says that she didn't sleep last night. And Angela says, girl, join the club because I didn't either. So now Shamia's like, Angela, why didn't you sleep last night? And we find out that Angela got backlash from the owner of the bank. And if I were Angela, I would not speak to Brit because the fact that I had a private event, shut the whole restaurant down for all of us to eat and have a good time, and you threaten somebody with a pistol, and the owner is chewing me out because one of my guests can't behave, I'd be livid because for you to embarrass me like that. Brit, if I were you, I'd be sending everybody in this group a gift basket of sorts, especially Angela, because you single-handedly ruined her dinner. So anyhow, Brit's like, oh my gosh, who do I need to apologize to? And then she says, Angela, I'm so sorry. So Angela's like, you know what, girl, whatever. How are you feeling? And Shamia jumps in because she wants to know the same thing. She's like, yeah, Brit, what's really going on? Because last night you kept going on and on and on. So now Brit says that Kenya kept cutting her off. And I said, when did Kenya cut you off? Kenya let you speak last night. So Brit says that she felt disrespected. And I'm like, you really need help. This is a one-sided beef in your mind because Kenya was pleasant, she was kind, she gave you a hug. You were the one who was bitching about, that's not a hug, that's a pat. You're the only one with an issue. Now, Angela, I low-key blame you for some of this mess because we find out that Angela is the one who wrote that question in last week's episode asking, Kenya, why can't you talk to Brit nicely like you do for everybody else? So Angela says that she was taking Brit's side because Brit had expressed to her a few days ago that Kenya's energy towards her is weird. And then she goes on to add that she was acknowledging Brit's feelings. Angela, I understand that you want to be a supportive friend, but it's okay for you to say, while I acknowledge your feelings, from where I'm standing, I'm not seeing Kenya give you this mean girl energy. I think it's all in your head. Brit trying to justify her piss poor behavior in that parking lot was wild to me. When she said, well, that's just who I am when I feel provoked. And I said, but again, nobody provoked you. You provoked yourself. You picked this fight with Kenya. And Brit, I mentioned this in the last recap, but the real issue here lies in the fact that you want to be Kenya's friend and you feel rejected by her. Not saying that Kenya hasn't been pleasant to you, but I believe that you want to be closer to Kenya and you feel slighted that Kenya isn't really in a rush to be your best friend. So now you want to say, oh, she's being mean and she's being weird to me and I feel this and I feel provoked and that's why I threatened her with a pistol. No, ma'am. This is a you problem. Because there's some feelings of rejection, maybe you feel abandoned, I don't know what they are, but it's clear that your personal issues are coming to the surface when it comes to Kenya. Whatever it is about Kenya, she triggers you. Because for you to say, well, that's how I am when I feel provoked, nobody has provoked you. And with each passing episode, I understand more and more why you don't have girlfriends. So Brit continues by saying that she would never want anybody to think that she was trying to intimidate Kenya. And I said, oh, really? Because the way you went off for a good 15 minutes in that parking lot, talking about, I got whips, I got pistols, I don't play that Hollywood shit, don't come over here with that, like, I don't play all that. Baby, you were talking like you wanted to blow her head off right then and there. Personally, Brit, you would never be around me because you have one time to even fake like you want to hit me, and you will never see me again. I don't play that.
Oh! Shout out to everybody. I had fun. I gotta be good.
So Shamia cuts in and says, well, you need to let Kenya know. And Angela says, yeah, because that's serious. So Brit says, oh yeah, I have no problem talking to Kenya and telling her this. And I said, oh really? Because all throughout this episode, we saw you talk to everybody but Kenya. Make it make sense. So Shamia goes on to ask if Brit has siblings, and Brit says, yeah, I have 2 sisters. Then she says that they get into it and they do get fiery with each other, but it's all love. And I said, oh, okay, so that's code for you also threaten them sometimes too. Because how you argue with one person is usually how you argue with everybody. Let me just stop right here because I'm annoyed that Bravo did not suspend Brit as well. I can assure you that if somebody on OC, Beverly Hills, New York, Potomac even, if anybody else threatened their castmate with a pistol, they would have been off the show by the next episode. And the fact that you're allowing Brit to showcase that kind of behavior, and then on top of that, she lied and gaslit the viewers for months. Remember how when the reports came out about this whole incident, Brit said, oh, I never said that. It's a lie. I don't even own a firearm. And we're seeing that Brit lied the entire time. I guess she thought that production was going to protect her and not show us the footage. But Miss Mamas, we see that you clearly threatened somebody with a firearm. Again, Brit Edie is not Real Housewives of Atlanta material. And I think that Bravo has done themselves a disservice by only firing Kenya. There should have also been consequences for Brit too. So this scene with Kenya was bittersweet because just knowing that it was one of our last scenes with Kenya, you just had to pull that stunt at the end. So Kenya's going over the final details. She says that she wants to zhuzh up her grand opening and she wants some feedback from her friends Portia and Kelly. So we cut to Kelly's confessional and she says that she likes Kenya a lot and she hates what's happened between her and Brit. And I'm thinking, Kelly, this whole issue is because of Brit. But Kelly goes on to say that she's here to make sure that Kenya gets all that she needs for her grand opening. So Kenya wants to have models for her grand opening, and we see that her assistant has some models there to try out. And Kenya got some great girls because everybody looked good, had great energy. I said, oh yeah, like your assistant did a great job with the casting. So now they start talking about who's invited. And Portia's like, did you invite everybody? And Kenya says, yeah, I believe so. And now Portia's like, did you invite Brit? And Kenya says, did I specifically invite her? No. Now, Kenya, here's where you messed up for me. Because if somebody threatened me with a firearm, called me out my name, there is no invitation. I would have told production, please let Brit know that she will not be invited and I don't want her anywhere near me. Your first mistake was not making that clear that she was not allowed on the premises. And I feel like had you pulled a power move like that, that would have ushered Brit off of this show that much faster. Because it would have showed the network that you were not playing around with your safety, you felt threatened, and you don't want her filming with you ever. Again, we'll talk more about this in the last scene, but you did yourself a disservice by not saying, Brit, the invitation has been rescinded and you are no longer invited. So Kelly jumps in and says, honestly, I'm still confused about what went down the other night. And Kenya says, I was having fun that night. We were all laughing and joking around about my big vagina. I thought it was all fun. And now Portia jumps in and says, yeah, things took a hard left turn with Brit. So Portia does defend Kenya and says that Kenya disengaged with Brit. And then she says, here's the thing. When it comes to what was said at the table, that can all be walked back. But when you threaten somebody with a pistol, that has to be broken all the way down. So Kenya says, yeah, I know what I heard. And now Kelly jumps in saying, well, I didn't hear her say that. And Kelly, how is that possible? Because when Brit said it the first time about how she has a pistol, you were standing right next to her. So Kenya's annoyed and she says, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do these lies and gaslighting. Then she says, I have too much to lose. I said, now Kenya, I needed you to have this energy at your hair spa grand opening because you completely lost sight of that. Yes, you do have too much to lose and you lost. by pulling that cheap stunt at the end. But Kenya's saying that she has no idea what she's done to Brit or even said to her that's warranted this type of clownery. And I said, yeah, girl, we're all confused. We don't know what you've done to her either. This is a one-sided beef in Brit Edie's pea brain, because she has been grasping at straws for the last 4 episodes about, oh, she shaded me about my ring. Girl, nobody did anything of the sort. And even if it was some light shade, you're telling me that that one comment has you that angry? So now Kelly jumps in to defend her friend, and she says, that's not who Brit is as a person. And Kenya snaps and says, you can't tell me that. And now you have Kelly saying, well, I've never seen her act out in that manner before. Now, Kelly, let me just whack you quickly, because you're going so hard for Brit when you and Brit fall out later on this season and you guys don't speak now. You and Shamia have been in the press throwing shots at Brit, saying how much you guys can't stand her, how she's a rotten peach who needs to be off the show. So all this defending for what? You guys aren't even friends present day. And this is a clear sign that Brit is the problem. So Portia says that Kenya should do her due diligence when it comes to Brit. And Kenya says, oh, best believe it, I'm doing a background check on her. And Kelly throws some light shade in her confessional saying that Kenya needs to focus on her stylist, do a background check on them. And I said, once again, Kelly, if I were you, I wouldn't say too much, knowing that you and Brit are on the outs right now. So you put your cape on for what? And now we see Kenya twirl on her haters for the last time. And my heart just broke in two, because that was it, y'all.
I'm still here, and I'm still fabulous.
Well, you better preach now.
Right? Fabulous. Gone with the wind, fabulous. Okay? Thank you.
This scene with Angela and her daughter Amari at a coffee shop had me perplexed. Is it just me? Or does it seem like Angela never tells us the full story? And does it also feel like Angela and her family have a lot going on? So Angela says that her daughter Amari is her oldest daughter. And when Amari was 7, Amari's father was murdered in Chicago. So Angela goes on to say that since she was a single mom for a long time, it created a super close bond between her and her daughter. That's her best friend. That's her ride or die. And Angela, may I just stop you right here? Because you're saying one thing, but what we're seeing as viewers is completely different. And all throughout this scene, I really do question the state of your relationship as mother and daughter right now, because I'm not getting super close best friend vibes in this moment. But that's just me. So Angela goes on to ask Amari about, does she still want to open up her own Peruvian coffee shop? And Amari says yes. So now Amari says, enough about that. Let's get to the nitty gritty. Why isn't Grandma here with us? She was supposed to meet us here. So Angela says that things blew up last minute because her mother called her up saying, hey, you need to talk to your daughter. And Angela's like, what happened between you and Grandma? When I tell y'all, I had to rewind this part several times because none of this story adds up for me. I have so many questions. Amari says that they got into it because she asked her grandma if she could use her car. And mind you, Angela bought this car for the grandmother. So I guess Amari felt like she's entitled to use the car since her mom paid for it. So Amari says that they wanted money from her. And then Angela's sister, Amari's aunt, got in her face and called her a demon. So my first thought was, Amari, your stepfather is Charles Oakley. He still has money. Your mom is a self-made millionaire. So why don't you have your own car? Why do you need the grandma's car? Did anybody else think the same thing? Because I was so confused by that. So now Angela's upset to hear that, and she's like, wait, nobody told me all that. Why didn't you tell me when it happened? So Amari says, I never expected that. And then she says, I helped them with their bills just like you helped them. And I'm thinking, your mom and Charles are already helping them with their bills. So why do you, as the grandchild, need to give them money as well? It's not adding up. So now we find out from Angela that Amari is living in the house that she bought for her grandma and her sister. And I was thinking, well, why doesn't Amari just live with you and Charles? So Angela goes on to say that things obviously went left. Amari moved out the house. And she goes on to say that it's really heartbreaking to hear that her own mother did not defend her grandchild. So Angela tells Amari that nobody F's with her and that her sister Alicia will be dealt with. And I said, I know that's right. Because one thing about it, my mom does not play about me or my siblings. And I wish an aunt or uncle would try it. So now Amari makes a comment that Angela should no longer support her mother and sister financially and that she should cut them off. So Angela's like, well, what would you do? And now we find out that Angela's mother was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when Angela was 8 years old. So just when you think that this whole entire ordeal can't get even crazier, it does. Angela says that this whole thing with her mother has given her no choice but to protect her baby, even though her baby is 25 and snuck off and got married without telling her. So I'm like, wait, Amari's married? So Angela is visibly hurt, and Amari's like, well, how did you find out? And Angela says, your grandma told me. So now Angela starts crying, and she's like, it's just so hurtful that you didn't tell me. You ran off and got married 4 months ago. We see a flashback scene from 2 weeks ago with Angela addressing Amari about it again, and Amari's upset. So as Angela's crying, all I'm thinking about is, how is Amari married, but she's living with her grandma and her aunt and has to borrow her grandma's car? Does Amari's spouse have a job? Where are they living? Because again, if you're married, why are you living with your grandma and your aunt and not your spouse? When I tell y'all, I was so confused. I said, what is going on? And Amari, I was so irritated at how manipulative you are. When you got mad at your mom for crying, and then you started crying and playing victim, I said, no, ma'am. Own up to what you did and say, you know what, Mom? I didn't mean to get you upset. Wasn't my intention. I could have handled things better. I won't have you out the loop again, and I'm sorry. That's what a grown woman does. They own up to when they're wrong, when they've messed up, and they stand 10 toes down in what they've done too. And Amari, it was just pure immaturity and low-key gaslighting your mother and acting like she's wrong for feeling upset. Again, this whole story makes no sense. I'm confused, and you guys aren't as close as you claim to be. Because even Angela said, our communication is broken. How are you guys best friends, but communication is broken? Now, this scene with Portia and Brit meeting up to talk about what happened at Angela's dinner, they could have kept this. Brit, you are so full of BS. For you to act like Kenya has done something to you. This is a made-up beef in your mind. Kenya did nothing to you. What aren't you getting? Because the way Portia clocked you when she said, Brit, I had no idea that you and Kenya even had beef. Because you guys seem to be cool at Shamia's party. And Brit, you had the gall to say that, oh yeah, I thought so too. But with Kenya, she likes to put on for people. I said, who was Kenya putting on for? Kenya has done a lot in her years as a housewife, but when it comes to you, she has done nothing to you. And then when you said, oh, it's Kenya's tone, because when she asked about my wedding band, and if I remember that scene correctly, you were the one that brought up that they were all divorced. And because you threw that out there, Kenya hit you back with, wait, are you engaged or are you married? I only see an engagement ring. I don't see a wedding band. And for whatever reason, you got upset off of that one question. So Brit goes on to say that Kenya was dismissive and nasty. I said, oh wait, she was? She was so dismissive and nasty in that first episode, but yet you were dying to get her attention. And I really stand by my thoughts that Brit needs to be evaluated, because for you to say, I feel like Kenya is targeting me, I said, what? Are you okay? She doesn't even pay you any mind. And every time she's been around you, she's been pleasant. You're the one who's targeting her. Y'all have to stop allowing these unhinged fans to come on these shows. If you follow me on Twitter, I always post up that meme of that woman on the bus and she's having a full-blown argument with nobody. And she's doing this and doing that. And I'm like, that's who Brit Edie reminds me of. Because for you to think that you're in some beef with somebody who's not paying you any mind and they've actually been pleasant to you every time you guys have seen each other, there's a problem. So now Portia brings up the whole pistol comment, and Brit, this sorry excuse for you to say, well, I was triggered by what was going on in the moment. I said, you were the one who caused this moment. You triggered yourself because Kenya did not start with you. You started with her. So now Brit finally decides that she wants to take full accountability for what happened. She says, I take 100% responsibility, and by no means would I ever do anything to Kenya. Then she goes on to say that she wants to move forward and she wants to apologize to Kenya. And I said, well, Brit, the smart thing to do would have been to call Kenya up for this lunch and apologize to her. Because again, I'm baffled as to you going around to everybody in the group but not talking to Kenya. So now we see a short scene with Angela and Charles at home. And mind you, it's the day of Kenya's grand opening for her hair spa, and Angela's getting ready for it. And she says, Charles, I'm going to Kenya's tonight. Would you want to come? So now Angela brings up what Portia told her the other night, that she has some tea on Charles. And Charles Oakley is not here for it. He was like, is she the feds or something? I said, not the feds. Now, when Charles went on to say that she better Google me and then Google me twice and see what comes up, I said, all right. I said, now, Charles, not too much, because that whole article comes up about Wendy Williams revealing how you had that side baby on Angela, and Angela was trying to convince Wendy, like, girl, I dealt with it, you can deal with it too. So you might not want us to Google you once or twice, because a lot of stuff does come up. And if I'm being really honest, Angela, whether or not the tea about Charles is true, I get the impression that you'll stay regardless. So now we get to the scene that we have all been waiting for. It is officially the evening of Kenya's grand opening for her hair spa. There's reporters, she has influencers there, I mean a whole crowd. So we see Cynthia pull up first, and she says that she's here to support her girl. She's excited for Kenya, and her and Kenya go way back to when she had the Bailey agency. So now Shamia arrives, now Portia arrives. I thought Portia looked really good. Now Kenya comes out the car, and Kenya, flawless. That hair, the dress, Kenya looked stunning. If you are going to go out with a bang, at least go out looking good, and you did that. But I thought that Kenya looked phenomenal. But anyway, Kenya's there. She's in good spirits. She's on the step and repeat, talking to reporters and the bloggers. She's talking to her girls, taking pictures with them, and we're having a nice time so far. So now we see Miss Lawrence pull up, and I got slightly emotional because I used to love Dwight and Miss Lawrence and Derek J on Atlanta in the earlier seasons. They really made the show that much more fun, especially Miss Lawrence. So seeing Miss Lawrence back on our screens was a full circle moment, in my opinion. Now, as Kenya's grand opening is just kicking off, we see Kelly on her way in a Sprinter van, and she stops to pick up Brit. Brit has a bouquet of flowers to give to Kenya, and she's optimistic that her and Kenya can work this out. And I said, girl, keep dreaming. So we flip right back to Kenya at the Kenya Moore Hair Spa. And when I tell you, Kenya spent money. So now we see Kenya asking the crowd if they remember the Bronner Brothers hair battles. And we see 4 models come out. And when I tell you this hair battle was everything, one of the models had her hair wrapped up like a spider's web. Then one of the other models was giving you Marie Antoinette. And mind you, everybody's having a good time. Cynthia says that the hair battle was epic. She's really loving it. We see Drew and her sister Allison pull up. Drew's enjoying it. And I'm like, just knowing that in the next 30 minutes, things are about to change, all because of some foolishness. It was disheartening because Kenya spent so much money and so much time to have a great event, and it's going to be spoiled in just a few minutes. So now we see Portia, Shamia, and Cynthia talking. Portia's like, oh, hey, girl, you're back in town? And Cynthia says, yep, I'm here. I'm in town. And then she brings up the dinner and she's like, I heard that all hell broke loose when I left. What happened? So Portia says, girl, it was a mess. Brit mentioned having a pistol. And Cynthia's like, wait, hold on. She said, what? So while they're talking, we see Angela show up. She gives Kenya a big hug. And now they bring up what went down between her and Brit at her dinner. So Kenya thanks Angela for reaching out to her because Angela was the only one who reached out to her after what happened. So Angela's like, oh my gosh, are you serious? Then she goes on to say that Kenya did not deserve what happened to her and how she's on Kenya's side. Now, mind you, everybody's there except for Kelly and Brit. They're still in the Sprinter van. And we see Brit talking about how she's in a weird place emotionally right now because her dad's sister passed away last week. I think she said that her aunt had a stroke. She was on life support and then they pulled the plug. And Brit, I'm sorry to hear that. My condolences. However, going through a loss does not excuse bad behavior. And I feel like you keep trying to make excuses for why you acted out. You had no right to threaten somebody with the firearm, especially when that person did nothing to you. So now we cut right back to the party. We have Cynthia asking if Brit's coming to the grand opening, and Portia says, you know what, I don't think so. So now we see Angela walk over, and they're asking Angela if Brit's gonna come, and Angela says, I really don't know. So we see Kenya taking some shots in the back. And anytime you are pounding down shots like that, things usually go left. Because I know after a few shots, it's usually downhill. But we see Kelly and Brit pull up. Kenya makes a face. And I say, here we go. We see Kenya take another shot. I said, Kenya, slow down, Miss Mamas. Slow down. Because those shots are about to catch up to you in the worst way. Now, when Drew tried to hug Portia and Portia paid her dust, I was so over it. I honestly forgot all about the whole Drew and Portia beef. I was like, I don't really care about that right now. Let's talk about that in the next episode. I felt like we spent 3 minutes too many on Portia and Drew going back and forth. Respectfully, I don't care. So we see Kenya hugging Drew's sister, Allison. Then she walks over to the group to say hello and give them hugs. And Brit approaches Kenya with the flowers. Kenya pays Brit dust. I said, chef's kiss. Kenya, had you just stayed right there, that would have been perfection.
Just wanted to apologize and just give you these.
Honey, hi.
Listen,
How
I just want to say I'm sorry.
What are y'all talking about?
That's cool. You can ignore me. Well, I'm going to leave these flowers here. Have a great
Yeah, I
weekend.
need to get everybody's attention.
Brit was embarrassed. She's like, you know what? I'm going to leave. She leaves her flowers. We see Brit walk out. She is clearly hurt. Like I said at the very beginning of this recap, ignoring people 9 times out of 10 hurts them more than you arguing back and forth with them. People hate being ignored. So again, Brit has left the building. She's talking to Kelly's PR person and Kelly and saying that she tried her best and, you know, it is what it is. We cut back to Kenya in her salon and she starts clapping to make a speech. So Kenya says, I need everybody's attention. Thank you all for coming. This has been a labor of love for me. This is all for my daughter. To say that this is all for your daughter and then to pull this stunt that you're about to pull in 2 minutes really blew me, but okay. Kenya, had you just left the speech right there, you would have been golden. When you went on to say that you're tired of people tearing you down, and how a certain person came in and brought you these flowers, and then when you said, somebody take these flowers outside and give them to a homeless person, I don't want them here. I said, Kenya, we're now doing too much. So now Kenya is rambling on about Brit. She's not saying her name, but she lets the crowd know that she is paying this person dust. So she goes on to say, I'm that bitch, been that bitch, still that bitch, paying you dust. I was cringing so hard. I said, Kenya, let's sit down and take a beat. This is embarrassing. What are you even talking about? First of all, Kenya, everybody at your event does not know Brit Edie, and they don't know the drama that happened between you two. So to bring this up in front of a whole crowd of hundreds of people is so stupid. And what made it worse was how everybody was staring like, what the F is happening? What is she talking about? Who is this person? Like, what's going on? And I'm like, the way I know how to read a room, the way I can pick up on social cues, if I'm rambling and I see that people's eyes are glazed over, folks are uncomfortable, I'm shutting up. And I was waiting for Kenya to do the same. At one point, I was screaming at my TV like, Kenya, stop talking and just sit down. Have a glass of water, have an hors d'oeuvre. Let's rein this back in. Let's wrap this up. So here's where all hell breaks loose. Kenya says that she did some research to find out who this bitch is, and she pulls out a poster board that says, who is this hoe? I said, Kenya, do you see how insane you look right now? This is pure madness. This is your event. You should not be focusing on anybody else at your own event. This is all about you and your hair salon. So now Kenya pulls out the second poster board, and it's even more cringe. She says, y'all see her? She used to be a video hoe. She was a trap video hoe at that.
Some more evidence for me. So yeah, she used to be a video hoe. Yeah. She was a trap hoe video hoe. Okay?
Kenya, my girl, like, what is happening? We are going down a rabbit hole.
Kelly walks out and says, you know what? I'm not doing this. So we see Kelly walking outside and she's like, everybody's been a hoe, even Kenya. Like, what is she saying right now? So now Kenya makes the fatal mistake. She pulls out the third poster board and everybody is speechless. Jaws are on the floor. This third poster board is a blown up picture of Brit Edie sucking dick, giving fellatio, a blowjob, whatever you want to call it. That's what she was doing, okay? You could cut the tension in that room with a knife. Cynthia was disgusted. She was like, don't nobody want to see a picture of Brit on her knees. Like, what is going on? So Shamia's like, this is too far. Even Drew's like, Kenya, what's happening right now? So Portia leaves and she's like, I can't support this. I don't want to be around this. So Angela says, I'm flabbergasted right now. What Kenya did right now was distasteful and uncalled for. Then she goes on to say that she's now on Brit's side.
I'm flabbergasted. What Kenya did was very distasteful. It was uncalled for, and it was hurtful.
Portia hit the nail on the head when she said, why would you do this on your special day? So many years of blood, sweat, and tears went into this moment. I feel like Kenya threw this entire moment away. And Portia, I agree. Kenya could have been on such a high right now, celebrating an amazing accomplishment. And now it's being overshadowed by some revenge pee. And what really blows my mind about this is, Kenya, you did all of this and Brit wasn't even in your salon. She was already down the street. So what was the purpose of pulling these poster boards out when Brit had already left the salon? It was just so stupid on so many levels. And again, you have to learn how to pick and choose your battles in life. You can't always fly off the handle just because you're mad. And this is one of those times where Kenya should have said, I will not allow this woman to steal my moment. Kenya, I'm sorry. While you had the right to be angry at Brit and what she said to you, threatening you in the last episode, you made yourself look foolish by tanking your own event with a cheap stunt like this. What did you gain from this? Nothing. And on top of that, Kenya, you didn't even get the reaction that you wanted from the crowd. Half of the crowd left because they were mortified by what you did. Everybody was embarrassed for you. Nobody was cheering you on for that. Everybody was like, whoa, did you just do that? Kenya, you allowed Brit to get the best of you. You did too much and you went out sad. At the end of the day, there is a way to handle everything. Had you just refused to film with Brit, you would have had the entire cast rally around you and say, you know what, we won't film with Brit either. And that's the easiest way to get somebody off the show. You could have gotten Brit in so many different ways, but to stoop this low?
No.
And say what you want about Cynthia Bailey. People always call her a flip-flopper. But at the end of the day, what she said to Kenya in this moment was the truth. She said nothing wrong in my opinion. That's what a true friend is. They will tell you something in love. Only folks who don't love you will cheer you on to make a fool of yourself. If you have people encouraging you to do the wrong thing, they don't love you. They want to see you fail. What Cynthia said was the truth. She said, Kenya, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. I don't know Brit Edie, but I know you. I am sad that you allowed this nonsense to get in the way of a special moment. You're better than this. I love you. I'll talk to you later. I'll call you. Congratulations. But you are better than what you showed right now. And Kenya, that's why it's good to seek out good counsel, because had you ran this stupid idea past one of your friends, they would have told you, girl, don't do that. Don't ruin your moment on Brit. I love you. I don't want you to embarrass yourself like that. It's not worth it. This was a stupid idea. And for all the diehard Kenya stans, I feel your pain. I'm sad that Kenya's off too. But you cannot do whatever you want in this life. There are consequences. Whether you feel like Kenya was justified or not, we can all agree that Kenya should not have spoiled her big moment on Brit Edie. That was just stupid, however way you slice it. Don't even give your op that kind of energy, especially not on your big day. It was just dumb. This could have been an amazing season for Kenya. The new friendships with Kelly and Portia, her salon being shown. There was so much to work with. Just a mess, y'all. I pride myself on being fair and objective. And yes, I do like Kenya, but this was a very stupid move. And unfortunately, she paid the price. Now, Bravo, I still stand by my thoughts in the last recap. What happened in last week's episode was also unacceptable. And I don't think that it's fair or right that you're only punishing Kenya and not Brit Edie. Brit Edie should also be suspended as well. And to threaten somebody with a pistol is unacceptable. Because like I said earlier on, let somebody threaten one of, a Caucasian housewife with a pistol, immediate action would have taken place. I don't think it's fair that on the Black franchises, somebody can be threatened with a pistol and that person goes off unscathed. It's not right. Hopefully, you guys will do the right thing and bring Kenya to the reunion. I think that it'll be a massive disservice if Kenya is not invited. I think that it's only fair to let Kenya speak her piece and give her side of things, especially since we didn't get confessionals from her. But Kenya girl, this broke my heart. I don't know why you would pull this mess at your own grand opening. It was literally grand opening, grand closing in less than an hour. I mean, you ruined your entire night. And my heart weeps for you because this did not have to happen. And one more thing, I know that Cynthia and Kenya aren't speaking right now. Cynthia said it in an interview. And Kenya, I don't know why you're mad at Cynthia. Cynthia is being a friend. Cynthia is telling you the truth in love, that you went too far and that this was a very dumb idea. And I don't know why you're mad at her. But this is a clear example of never allowing anybody to trick you out of your spot, because that's exactly what Brit Edie did to Kenya. You have to be strategic. You have to, especially when you have a lot on the line, when you're successful, accomplished. You cannot just go at it with people like you're out on the streets. You have to think smart. This was a lapse in judgment, and it just sucks because Kenya really took a massive L. But y'all, that was my recap. As you guys can see, I had a lot to say. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to everybody who listens to me on the podcast, on Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts. And like I always say, please keep it respectful in the comment section. And you already know what to do. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all later. Bye.